As I said previously, the video would most likely need to be updated after the release of the 2022 film, and I guess I was kind of right. So without further ado, let's find out what happened to Sally Hardesty after the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974 updated 2022 edition. As in the last video, I went through old films and stories that were not canon to the current Texas Chainsaw Massacre timeline, but apparently there was a film I left out, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. On a recent rewatch, apparently the character Lefty in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is the uncle to Sally and Franklin Hardesty, and is on a hunt for Leatherface to exact revenge for obviously his fallen nephew and his permanently scarred nephew. Franklin is seen later in the film and mourned by Lefty, which it's kind of odd that Franklin has his flashlight that he held on to for dear life in the first film, but eventually dropped it. I mean, having a chainsaw drilled into your chest will cause you to do that, but now he has it again in his hand and turns it on, which obviously is long dead. That's just kind of his bones moving, turning it on, but moving on. But with this context, I can only assume that Sally's uncle Lefty took her seriously and came back to exact revenge for, for her and her brother's killers / captives. But as I said in the last video, this is all irrelevant towards the 2022 film, so let's get into that. So in the earlier parts of the 2022 film, it is stated while a documentary or news tape plays on an old shop television, telling us that Sally was the only and sole survivor of the massacre, and after telling the police her story, refused to speak of the situation ever again to anyone else. Which seems fair. If you or I had been through what Sally had, we'd probably want to forget about it too, but we wouldn't be able to. Just like Sally. After the broadcast, we're shown an old newspaper, which I addressed in my first video, but now I get a more clear look at it. I'll only be going over things that pertain to what happened to Sally after the fact and after Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974, but feel free to skim it if you think I missed anything or just find it cool like I do. It reads, on our rural roads, local farmers and laborers request upon stranded travelers looking for a boost into the nearest farm or area or something else. Often these travelers are victims of common mishaps or poor planning, but shortly after dawn on the first Sunday of last month, a local ranch hand climbed into his pickup, bound for an afternoon of cattle herding. As he dusted along his typical weekend, he encountered a roadside victim of only written about in horror stories. Her name is Sally Hardesty. While I might have gotten a few things wrong in that article, since the image is very blurry, I feel I have a confident enough picture of the situation. The person or local ranch hand is the man who picked her up / saved her at the end of the 1974 film, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The statement also means that the getaway driver most likely gave a statement considering how specific the paper recounts his routine, and also confirms that Sally also gave a statement again with the accuracy towards the events, and last but not least, that she and the driver were taken seriously, not just thrown into a nut house, and the statement that she gave would be the last she would speak of it. The article goes on to state more clearly that earlier that same Saturday morning, sheriff deputies respond to calls of a masked man assaulting passerbyers on a quiet stretch of farm road in southern Henkel County. Drivers encountered a large individual wielding a chainsaw at vehicles as they drove, and basically continues to offer rewards on information regarding the masked killer, or as we know him, Leatherface. So there's a lot to unpack here. So Sally and her friends encountered Leatherface and his family on Saturday, and Sally was saved on Sunday according to the article and this person's recount. And the second statement says that Leatherface was seen on Saturday morning tormenting drivers with his chainsaw. At first I thought this was when Sally was saved, since he was last seen swinging his chainsaw around on the road, but that was on Sunday morning. Then I thought this was when Sally made her way to the gas station where she was captured by one of the Sawyers, but that was Saturday night or maybe Sunday morning, depending on the time of that one event. So this must mean that Leatherface was out and on the road tormenting drivers before our group even arrived at the Sawyer or Leatherface's house. Maybe with the grave robbings and the person messing around with the graves, maybe this was Leatherface doing it and he was messing with people on the road on the way home from doing so or to do it. I know this has no connection towards what happened to Sally, but I do find it cool to learn new information regarding the unseen event of the first film. It was just cool. school. Also, weirdly, it says all updates will be put in the Sunday edition, but this is on the Saturday edition. I'm getting off topic. If we take a look at the photo next to the text, it seems to be college student Sally Hardesty of Eastern Texas. And it does mention how the photo is an archive. It means the image might be an old photo of Sally prior to the events of the 1974 film, or is a photo of her taken after the events for the paper, which sounds very insensitive to ask for that, or even take that photo after hearing what she went through and the absolute horrific events that took place. But by the looks of the photo, she doesn't seem to have blood on her face or on her shirt that she had by the end of the 1974 film, but that could be easily explained by the fact that she washed the blood off her face. But the shirt does look very similar to the one that she had on at the end of the 1974 film. But it's completely clean. Someone could have cleaned it for her or had another shirt that was just like that one, or this was just taken before the entire incident. The last thing about this photo is that she seems in distress or scared, but maybe not. It's very hard to tell. Also, in the original 1974 film, if you pause at 7 minutes and 39 seconds, you can see a shot of Sally at the graveyard, which looks very similar. And it makes sense since she wouldn't have the blood on the shirt or her face and that she would have a clean shirt. But how did anyone get a picture here at the graveyard? It could be possible photographers or journalists covering the grave robbings and tamperings and possibly taking a photo of her there, or hell, this can just be one big plot hole that doesn't matter. And honestly, maybe they just use the normal photo of Marilyn Burns on set. Who knows? The next photo shows what I do believe is the Sawyer house or the Sawyer Manor, and it shows 1, 2, or more cars pulled up in front of it, which those 2 cars weren't there at the end of the last film, so those could be police cars or the people of the town or local area coming to get Leatherface and his family after Sally's story got told towards the townspeople and the sheriffs. This could be the cause of Leatherface now being in the orphanage in the film, since he had to leave home because he's the main suspect of a massive murder case and manhunt. But I do wonder what happened to the other Sawyer since he was still alive at the end of the movie. I guess he was old and possibly died, or maybe he's still alive and we'll see him in the sequel. But all this photo gives us is that the police and sheriffs went to the Sawyer house or manor and possibly found no one, unless Leather acted as a scared child and was taken by the police and placed in the orphanage, since obviously that's a very unset place for a, child. And the other Sawyer was basically taken away, or again, possibly died, as Leather got to get away with everything and got away with it all since he staged himself as a scared child or person or an orphan. Again, who knows? As we move into the film, we meet the film's main protagonist, Lila, as she's buying some things for the road for her and her friends and her sister. She spots all of this, the newspapers, the documentary, the news tapes, all of this, and she spots it all and asks the storekeeper if Sally is still alive and what happened to her. The man explains that she stayed in Texas, became a ranger, and looked/hunted for Leatherface for more than 30 to 40 years. The article/newspaper said that she was a college student, meaning that she was possibly old enough to begin training as a ranger, meaning that she either dropped out of high school or more so college, to become a ranger, which seems realistic for someone who has been through all of that trauma to make a sudden life-altering choice, or maybe she finished college and school and then became a ranger. Then Lila proceeds to ask if she got him, to which the store owner says that he was wearing a mask and that's very hard to locate someone if you don't know what they look like. And this one piece of dialogue and the fact that later in the film Leather has to make a new mask that he discarded of his old one to not be seen as a threat towards the police, to which he was taken to an orphanage, but I guess that doesn't explain how he obtained and kept his old chainsaw, since the police wouldn't just let him take it and keep it. But again, in the post-credits scene, he is seen walking back to the old Sawyer house, so maybe he went back there to get it after all was said and done and retrieved the chainsaw but not the mask. It's all very complex and confusing, so I'll just assume he ran away to the orphanage to stay there to wait out the manhunt and the raid on his home. But in the orphanage, there's only one group photo of Leatherface with the other kids in 1975, when the events of the original film took place in 1973, 2 years prior. And after, I'm done. Make of it what you will. Later in the film, the store owner calls Sally to alert her of Leatherface's return, meaning she's made some friends with the locals who know of her past, and also telling by this scene she now owns a slaughterhouse and is now a homeowner. Which, I'll be honest, the slaughterhouse is a little weird after what she experienced in the Sawyer house in 1973. When Sally finds the skin-faced woman, which is an amazing and extremely horrifying/terrifying scene, by the way, you can see the horror/terror in her eyes, showing she still has some form form of PTSD, since she also rushes back to her truck, breathing heavily, and finds comfort in a picture of her friends. Sally later returns to the town to save Lila and her sister, but traps them in hopes of luring out Leatherface and getting her revenge. She then walks towards the orphanage and finds Leatherface and starts to confront him on her friends and what he did to them, and begs for some form of recognition, but he passed by her and goes to finish the girls off. This whole sequence really intrigued me, since it shows that she's grown cold towards humanity and will do whatever to secure her revenge, even if that means trapping and possibly sacrificing another human life just to get revenge. Even more, the fact that she wanted him to recognize her friend's brother and her to give everything some meaning, so maybe he can remember everything he did to them, making the kill seem even more meaningful, but that's crushed when he just brushes her pleas off and just walks past her. You can really see in her eyes and with what she says and how she says it all that she so badly wants to believe it's all for her friends, and that's for what happened to her and them, but when he doesn't recognize her or what he's done, it shows that he's just not a man. He's an extremely psychotic and long gone being, and she now sees herself as just another Leatherface victim, just as her friends were, but the only difference is that she got away alive, cementing a theme that's commonly seen in this movie that many have brought up, which is survivor's guilt, which is possibly something that she feels now, knowing that she can't bring purpose to killing him, and now she feels her chance for redemption is gone. To speedrun the rest of this, before Leatherface can kill the girls, Sally saves them with a change of heart that it can't all be for nothing and to save someone, the way she couldn't save her friends and her brother. She doesn't want them to go out the way her friend and her brother did, helpless. So with all she has, battles him out till she eventually is killed and dies trying to save the girls one last time and securing their safety. I'll dive more into what I think of Sally in this film when I drop my review, but in the post-credits scene, it's shown that Leatherface is going back to the Sawyer house or Sawyer Manor, going home. Maybe a sequel? Who knows? I want to thank you all for the support on the original video. I'm glad you all are really enjoying this series so far, since it's something that I love doing, which is studying, researching, and watching horror movies. Don't worry, the next one isn't really that far away, but I want to thank you all for sticking around, since it means more than you can imagine that you guys are enjoying this series and that I could do this and, like, you know, kind of, we can all have a discussion on these, like, you know, topics in the genre of horror with the movies and what happened to characters after, with a bit of research and just, like, you know, having fun and just watching horror movies and just chatting it up and just talking about that stuff. So thank you all very much. But that was all I could really dig up, combining the original 1974 film, every film in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series / franchise, and the 2022 film. Leave your thoughts down below. What do you think happened to Sally Hardesty after the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974? And did you like Sally in the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie? See you all later. Peace out, my amigos, and peace out.